Hope Channel, changing lives.
And we want to apologize for that break. I will call it a technical break. There's something that was beyond our control at the time, but thank be to God that we have been able to put everything in line where we'll continue with where we left off. And so just before we went on that technical break, we had Mr. Ekow Nelson at the other end, who is our guest today to speak to us and educate us on the 5G technology and its application. You know, like I said before we went for the break, there are a lot of conspiracy theories going on with regards to this technology. And if you look at the experience Mr. Nelson has, I think he's the right person to have on board and to educate us on these matters. And so, Mr. Nelson, please, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so sorry for keeping you waiting. It was a technical break that we needed to go so that we could get you back and for our viewers to cherish what you have for us today. So before we left off, I was just saying that can you really break down for us the 5G technology and its applications, sir?
Sure. 5G is the next in the various generations of mobile technology we've had since the mid-1980s. Every new generation of mobile networks delivers faster speeds and capabilities. 1G gave us the first mobile phone, which was untethered to a location, so you could actually speak whilst you were on the move. 2G gave us the ability to do SMS or texting. 3G built on that and connected the mobile to the internet. And then 4G gave us the smartphones, videos, and a plethora of apps, from maps to video streaming, wearables, and the ability to transact, as in buy goods and services, plus also rent rooms through Airbnb or to hail a cab through Uber. But as many more users come online, data consumption is set to quadruple over the next 5 years by 2025. 4G networks have just about reached their limits of capability. And now we are headed towards 5G, the next generation mobile communication, which will be able to handle many multiple times the capacity of today's network, and will be 10 times faster than 5G. 10 times faster than 5G. So, you know, your videos your HD video that you download probably in few minutes, or maybe even an hour, will be downloaded in less than a second. Many of what you do today will continue to hold true in 5G. They will just be done much faster than you currently are able to do. But 5G will be the foundation for new types of experiences or use cases, as we call them. Virtual reality is one of them, augmented reality, supporting autonomous cars. 5G network will give the operators the ability to deliver new services in dynamic ways. There are a set of use cases around enterprise, fleet management, automated factories, which are all focused on businesses. So the best way to view 5G is if the previous generations of, say, first generation to the fourth generation of mobile technology helped change our lives, the way we live our lives, the way we buy books, the way we read, the way we search for information, the way we even buy food, or the way we keep our health keep up with our health. If 5G for the previous generations changed all of that, what 5G is going to do is exactly the same, but for the enterprise, for businesses. So you can assume that 4G, 3G were all for the individual consumer. 5G will bring some individual benefits, but its main target is to transform industry in what is typically called Industry 4.0. And I can go into a little bit of that. Okay. But that's in a nutshell is what 5G is about.
Okay. And so if I heard you right, so what you're trying to say is that the 5G will make work easier and faster in our time. Am I right to say that?
It will transform the way we work. It will transform the way we organize work. So today we are all in social isolation, or have been, and we are working using 4G. Even the way we're doing this broadcast, typically you would bring people into a studio. We don't have to do that anymore. So even the whole industry of communicating much more effectively, and that means that the forklift driver will have to be retrained to do something else. So this is one of the key, if you like, downsides, in that there will be a shift in skills and capabilities, and that will obviously have a short-term impact. In the long term, though, as with all technologies, my own belief is that it will create new jobs and new skill sets that will compensate for the job losses that might result from it.
Yes, very much said. But just before I go to my next question, I really wanted to have you expatiate on that. You know, the short-term effect and the long-term effect. But with this time, with regards to job loss, you are talking about maybe people will be retrained to acquire some other skills and things like that. How is that going to happen?
I think it's a matter of, I think that is not a technology question. I think technology has a role to play, but a large part of this is a policy question. I think governments need to invest. Governments need to look at this and study what changes might happen in the economy, and to prepare the country and the economy, both through the education system, short-term training, and other employment initiatives to contain the situation. This is not going to be done by the technology industry. This is really a matter of government policy. All
right, sir. And so can we have you demonstrate to us how this application is going to work?
Well, I mean, the way the applications would work, you would have factories, for example, will be, there's a company called ABB, is a Swedish company, that's been investing in building robots. So they are converting traditional assembly line factories to robots. We're doing a piece of work with Mercedes-Benz. Mercedes-Benz is building a new factory, and it's all going to be fitted with robots. Right? And those robots are then, it's all going to be fitted with robots. The robots are then going to be controlled using 5G with information in the cloud. Because a large part of what is done in an assembly plant is repetitive. And if you can program it to do it much more effectively through 5G, you will have a new type of factory. To give you another example, there's a piece of work that we did with King's College in London, King's College Hospital in London, where an ambulance picks you up and the doctor, but it's a long way from where you've been picked up to the hospital. And of course, the paramedics only have limited capability on how to assess you. Now, there's a piece of technology that we've developed over 5G that allows the doctor in the remote hospital to run a scan and automatically, in real time, be able to view the scan from a remote location. But much more than that, they would put a haptic glove, which is one of these devices that would be on the paramedic's hands. The haptic glove will then be used to hold the instrument that goes on the person's body. And the doctor will be able to operate it, will be able to operate that device remotely without being in the ambulance. And would feel the feedback from the body almost instantaneously, because what we call latency is less than 1 millisecond. So you can begin to think that if you think about it in the long term, in the extreme case, how have hospitals been organized? Hospitals are organized by having patients in one room, in one building, in one locality. That's something that we've done since Florence Nightingale over 100 years ago. But do all hospital beds need to be co-located in one place? Can we use this technology in the era of COVID that allows a doctor to attend to a patient without having to be physically present and be able to diagnose and treat the patient in exactly the same way as they would if that patient were in front of them? They will have all of the information, the feedback through their stethoscope, all of the diagnostic information available to them instantaneously, just as if they were there, using things like augmented reality, virtual reality, and various other techniques. So the potential to transform is significant. To change the way we organize. A hospital will no longer be a physical location. It could be multiple locations.
Yes, you see, it brings me back to a question I've asked earlier, sir. You see, it sounds exciting, especially if you are used to using your smartphone and doing some other stuff. But you see, these technological institutions are not working in isolation, and so yes, I understand that government will have to put policies in place and all of that. But as you advance technology, what is the bit that you guys are doing so that it would help the government to not to be stranded in a way? And I'm talking about jobs and stuff like that. That's why I asked that question. I didn't know if there is something that you are doing to help government implement policies that would not make it look as though the technology has come and this disadvantage may be affecting the human population, sir.
So this is a highly regulated industry. We are every country has got a national regulator. Ghana has got its own regulator. And we work with many regulators around the world in advancing or in shaping policies. And governments often see these regulatory bodies as part of the, if you like, national policy decision-making bodies. So, for example, if you take the UAE, where I live, and also in Saudi Arabia, they've all got country visions. The UAE has got, I think, the UAE 2021, which will expire next year. Saudi has got Saudi 2030, and they've got a whole chunk around that in terms of ICT. And what they've done is they've worked with the regulators and ourselves to begin to imagine what Saudi society will look like in 2030, what technology investments need to be made, what educational changes need to be made to the curriculum, what sort of training programs. So these are done in collaboration, right, between industry and government through the regulatory bodies that guide the work that we do in the industry. And so this is stuff that I imagine in places in Ghana where you don't even have plans for 5G at the moment, that those are discussions that are still underway. And that will be the right way to do it.
And I think it does alleviate our fear to some extent. And you see, our viewers are watching, and they have joined in via our WhatsApp line, and some questions have come though. And so I'll be chipping them in as and when we go on. But one of our viewers want me to ask you, Mr. Nelson, for how long has this 5G technology been around?
Well, the initial standardization started around 2012, but the first approved standard was published in 2017. And the first deployment of that standard was at the Winter Olympics in Korea in, I think, the January 2018. That was the first time. Now, and it was experimental. Then companies like China Mobile and Verizon really wanted to accelerate. Because one of the key drivers for this is that many of us are generating with the videos and other online services that we are consuming. We are generating massive amounts of data, more than 4G is able to handle, and it's too expensive for the operators to process all of that data. And so 5G, given its the efficiencies that it introduces, is one way in which operators are seeking to reduce the cost. So companies like Verizon and China Mobile went ahead of the standardization process and started developing, if you like, their own version of 5G before the formal standards were agreed. The formal standards were finally agreed for non-standalone in mid 2018, and for standalone 5G, which I can explain later, was December 2019. To date, there are no deployments, commercial deployments of standalone 5G, but there are about 53 deployments, as you can see on the chart here, of 53 commercial networks that have 5G across 26 countries today. The first standalone network is probably going to come on board, or was planned for Q2 2020 by China Mobile. Our estimate is it will probably be in Q3 or Q4 because of COVID-19. But this year we will have the first standalone 5G network in the world.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. My next question has to do with the health implications. What is the relation of the 5G with our health? And of course, we'll come to the security aspect. But if we could deal with that, because you see, some of the theories around seems to suggest that it is the emergence of this 5G that is causing this vicious virus to cause this havoc that is around. How would you answer that?
So I think the first thing to do is I'll show you. I don't know if you can see my screen. This is a diagram that I think
we can see you. Yes.
Okay. So this diagram is really an important diagram because I think it probably explains a lot more.
Okay.
Let me start on the previous diagram. Look, the entire ecosystem. 5G is an ecosystem. 5G is not one thing. 5G is spectrum. It's network technology, a set of applications for which I've given you some examples, and a set of devices. Mm-hmm. All of these come together to form 5G. Mm-hmm. So it's not one single thing. Okay? Now, it always begins with spectrum. If you don't have spectrum, you don't have 5G, you don't have 3G, you don't have 2G, you don't have 4G. Mm-hmm. Spectrum is owned by government. There are electromagnetic waves in the air. It's comprised of frequencies of electromagnetic radiation that propagate energy and travel through space to form waves. Mm-hmm. Spectrum, if you then go to the next diagram, spectrum is used in all forms of wireless communications, including mobile, and with the blue circle the dotted circle that I've shown there. GPS positioning, when you do your sat nav, it's using spectrum. Aeronautical and maritime radio navigation that's used by our Navy uses spectrum. Satellite command and control uses spectrum. Satellite radio, television, terrestrial television, digital television, FM radio, remote control, all of these occupies parts of that spectrum. Mm-hmm. Okay? So there's nothing new that 5G is doing. So if you look in there where you got the soccer ball at the bottom, that's where most radio networks sit. That's the spectrum that 5G, 3G, 4G, and 2G are using. Okay. 5G is using the same electromagnetic waves as the previous generation of networks. It's going to be using more higher bands, which is where you get the extra capacity, but it's not doing anything different. So 5G hasn't introduced anything in that spectrum. If you move to the right of that spectrum, you see remote control is even in a higher spectrum. And if you look at how that diagram is structured, there's what they call the non-ionizing radiation and ionizing radiation. Ionizing radiation, which could be harmful, is X-rays, radioactive elements. 5G is nowhere near there. 5G is part of what's in the left-hand side, which we use for everyday stuff. Okay? Now, in all mobile networks connected to devices, to base stations, through electromagnetic fields, as with previous networks, the base stations will continue with by transmitting and receiving radio waves. With the outbreak of the pandemic, as you said, a new completely unfound theory that the novel coronavirus was created by a rapidly spread or being rapidly spread by 5G. And this has been shared across various social media. This has led to some disturbing and serious consequences, including people burning lampposts and masks and things. And it has affected some of our people in the field. These actions have been condemned by many organizations, and others have responded with a very strong statement. But what I'd like to do is just to set out some facts to help you. 5G equipment, whether it be mobile devices, base stations, meet the same safety standards as were used in today's networks, in 3G, 4G, 2G. The World Health Organization states, from all evidence accumulated so far, no adverse short or long-term effects have been shown to occur in the radio frequency signals produced by base stations. And a large number of studies have been performed over the last 2 decades to assess whether mobile phones pose a potential health risk. To date, no adverse health risks have been established as being caused by mobile phone use. The ICNIRP have also said, which is the body that regulates the non-ionizing radiation, the most important thing for people to remember is that 5G technologies will not be able to cause harm if companies like ourselves adhere to their guidelines, and we do. And the European Commission also said there is 5G network. One of the largest 5G networks is in Telstra in Australia. Australia has one of the lowest incidences of the advanced world of COVID-19. No scientific basis between 5G and COVID. Now more than ever, information technology is vital to our economy, and organizations such as our trade organization for the telecom industry have also issued various statements. So all I can say to you is that 5G will be in low bands, it will be in mid bands, it will use the same electromagnetic frequency as the previous generation of mobile phones. And it is not the cause of COVID-19. It's just you get COVID-19 through other human beings who have it, through respiratory, or who've got a respiratory disease, whether through sneezing or exchanging some kind of bodily fluids or whatever droplets there might be in the air, but not radio waves. Radio waves cannot cause a virus. This is a virus.
Okay, so sir, you see, if you look at the text messages I have had so far, a majority of them has to do with the health implications probably that will come with 5G. But from your explanation, we are getting to understand that 5G has no health hazard as long as those countries and industries and facilities using them would adhere to precautionary measures. Which regulatory body is in charge of that? And how are we sure that those establishments or in the usage of the 5G, people would adhere to how it must be used?
Every country has the Australian, I think, Nuclear Association have got their own standards. The UK health and safety regulation has got its own standards that it sets. The EU has a set of standards that it sets. And then there's an industry body called the ICNIRP, which defines the radiation levels that are allowable by mobile networks and device manufacturers. So there are a combination of international organizations as well as country and, if you like, regional organizations that have set all of these standards. And all our products have to adhere to those standards. And those standards have to be are enforced by those regulatory bodies before we can sell. It's part of our trade practice. We have to adhere to those standards before we can sell our products.
Okay. And so with
and
some
that applies to Huawei, ourselves, and Nokia.
Exactly. And so with some of the conspiracies being bundled around, seems to suggest that with the emergence of 5G, which of course you have made us known that it's been around since 2012 and been piloted and all of that, and now it has become a subject of discussion. And so I'm right to say with the emergence of it, and so with the emergence of 5G, some people seem to suggest that it will come with some implantation of chips into our human body.
No.
What explanation do you have for that, sir?
That's not true.
So it doesn't come with any chip. And so some people say even that in the hospitals, when newborn babies are giving birth to, some injection will be given them, and by that you get to get some chips into their system, and wherever they are, they can be located. And what about that?
So let's go back and look at this diagram, because this diagram is really important.
Mm-hmm.
I said it's an ecosystem. First, you need the radio waves, and governments allocate those radio waves, and they allocate it in exchange for money, and they give you the license or the right to transmit in those frequencies that are allocated to you.
Mm-hmm.
That's the first thing. Then you need a technology, which is the network technology, which is made up of a base station and antenna that works in those frequencies.
Mm-hmm.
Then you need a set of applications, some of which we've described, like augmented reality, that you and I can use because the network itself is of no use to us. And then you have a set of devices.
Mm-hmm.
And the devices could be a mobile phone, it could be a tablet, but there could be embedded devices as well. When I say embedded devices, it could be the device that is embedded in your fridge. And that might be a chip, right? A 5G chip. Because if you want your fridge to talk to the network, then the easiest thing to do is for Philips or Whirlpool and others to embed the chip in the device so that it can talk to the network.
Mm-hmm.
Now, theoretically, if you wanted to connect human beings directly to the network, you might be able to put a chip in them. But it seems to be pointless to want to do that. What sort of application? Because if you've got the device in your hand, the smartphone in your hand, the laptop in your hand, or the car in your hand, those are the devices that you are using. And those devices have got chips in them that allow them to communicate with the 5G network. 5G doesn't require you to have anything in your body. Not a single thing.
Not a single thing in your body.
In your body.
Mr. Nelson.
But you need a device to access the network, right?
Exactly.
You need a device to access the network. But that device could be your car, right?
Okay.
If your car is being controlled by the network, then that device could be your car. It could be a ship. It could be a truck, which is why the implications for industry are really quite significant.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So
sir.
for example, if you take, there's a piece of work we've done with China Unicom and a port called Qingdao Port in China.
Mm-hmm.
And they want to operate the cranes without a human being. Because what does a crane do? The crane basically goes and lifts the container and it puts it on the curb. Yeah. That's all it does.
Mm-hmm.
Now, but they want to be able to do it with precision, because remember, it needs to, especially if it's loading the ship, the container needs to slot in at a very tight location.
Mm-hmm.
So it's got about 30 360 cameras on it. And then as it's as it's downloading the container, it has precision calculations that are made to make sure that it slots precisely in the hole where it needs to be.
Something the human being cannot do?
Human beings can do, but if you think about a port, how does a port make its money? It makes its money by having a very high turnover of ships.
Sure.
That's how it makes its money. So if you're going to get human beings to do it, and it will take you 1 week to offload a ship and unload, but you can do it in a day, then there are some efficiencies that can be gained in using the technology.
Okay, Mr. Nelson, maybe this one I may want to put you on the spot. Currently, per your knowledge, is Ghana already in the era of 5G?
No. So if you look on this map, South Africa is doing trials at the moment. They don't have a commercial network yet. I'm not aware that the Ghana government has auctioned or sold off any 5G spectrum to any operator yet. Again, I come back to this diagram. It begins with spectrum, right? The right to transmit the signals for 5G network are allocated by government. So the first step is for government to allocate that spectrum to either MTN, Vodafone, or any of the other operators. At the moment, I don't think that any of them have an appetite to spend money buying spectrum because it's going to be extremely expensive unless the government decides to give it away for free, as Saudi Arabia and the UAE have done. Saudi Arabia and the UAE gave the spectrum away for free to their operators, and in return, they told them, I want you to invest in building the fastest 5G network in the world. So by 2023, the whole of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia is going to be covered with 5G. The same with the UAE. Instead of giving the money to us as government, spend it on building the infrastructure, because we need that infrastructure for our development. And that would be my advice to Ghana government, because I don't think the operators have got money to spend.
It's been very insightful and educative. Mr. Nelson, I may want to ask this question. Would you want to educate us and our viewers on some of the precautionary measures that you spoke of a short while ago?
As in?
So, well, precautionary measures as in those who want to roll onto it will want to put in place, and then users. What are some of the precautionary measures that are there for them?
Well, I mean, there aren't any, precautionary measures. I mean, in terms of if you want to roll out, then obviously the technology is there. The technology is provided by the likes of Huawei, Ericsson, Nokia. The devices are provided by Apple. Actually, I can show you some devices that are currently, I can show you some, just give you some examples of devices. So these are all the devices that are available today. Today, there's about 50 5G handsets. But unless they support 4G, they will not work on your network in Ghana. There are headsets that are being done. There are drones that are being manufactured. So all of these prerequisites need to be in place before you can really have a 5G network.
Okay.
But I'm not sure whether I've answered your question in terms of what the
prerequisites are. Well, maybe I will have to chip in this as we wrap up with our interview with you. I must be honest that it's been very exciting, insightful, and educative. And so as we seek to wrap up, Mr. Nelson, this seems to be the major concern of a lot more of the people, with regards to the health implications. Are we saying that with this 5G, there are no health implications whatsoever? Why I'm asking this is that we have heard this, that sometimes people have had their phones charged under their under their pillows, and it has exploded and stuff like that. You know, there are a lot of these things in the public arena, and a cause for concern and all of that. Are we saying that all of these, whether the 2G, the 3G, the 4G, and now the 5G, has no health implications at all?
Well, I mean, the only thing I can do is to quote because I'm not a health expert, right? So when I'm looking for health information, I go to the WHO.
Okay.
And then what they've said is that, so far, no adverse short or long-term effects have been shown to occur from RF signals. That's about as clear-cut as you can get from the most authoritative health organization in the world.
Okay.
But having said that, I always add a caveat: we don't know. So I'll say that we as Ericsson are involved in the development of technical standards and testing of the 5G products to ensure that the electromagnetic frequency exposure is at safe levels for the general public and for the workers. That's part of our responsibility, and we continue to work on that to make sure that we improve on the standards and that we can even do better than what the regulatory regimes require of us today.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Nelson. But before we wrap up and we'll let you go, what are your final words in all of this confusion?
I guess the most important thing everyone is interested in is the health. So I'll probably just end with that to do your audience justice. Number one, there's a large amount of research over the past 50 years into radio waves and their effects on health. Large amount of research has been conducted. Exposure guidelines and standards have been established based on this research. And those guidelines are what all of us in the industry adhere to. Number two, the World Health Organization and other expert groups have concluded that scientific evidence does not demonstrate any effects associated with the radio waves from mobile phones and base stations. Number three, the products that we produce, at least in our company, are in compliance with these exposure guidelines set by various organizations and governmental bodies. So, to the extent that, to the best of our knowledge and what we know now, there is no impact, no discernible impact that is based in scientific fact.
Okay, and so finally, you know, some of you are very busy, so once we get you, we really have to digest everything.
Sure.
So finally, do you have some videos that you want to use as demonstration of how this network will work? Do you have any such things, sir?
Well, there is one. So, okay, so we can start here. So if you look at this, for example, this, sorry, let me try and move this away.
That's okay,
if you look at this, one of the consumer, I did say that 5G was really about the enterprise, but it will improve the experience on the consumer side as well.
Okay.
You know, today, you are able to do video gaming, you know, live streaming. We do all of those things. The 5G experience on the right-hand side is going to be more immersive. So you're just not going to view it in a two-dimensional sense. You will be inside. You will be a player inside the particular experience. So it's what we call the immersive experience. Augmented reality and extended reality will be an important part of what we do. Ultra high definition 360 real-time replays. And before I show you a video, we are working with the Qatar government and the FIFA 2022. It's all going to be 5G. There are going to be 360-degree cameras across all of the stadiums. You can control the view of the game that you want to see.
Wow. Wow.
Right, and that's going to happen in 2022. That's what they want to do. So from your tablet or from your screen, as you're watching that experience, you can decide, how you view the penalty, which part of the stadium you look at by just swiping, and that's all going to happen through 5G. So I'm going to show you two immersive experiences. Here's one by LG. It's one of the 3 operators in Korea. Korea is one of the first to launch. Korea has got 5 million subscribers of 5G, and they launched only in April 2019. And many of the services they're launching are basically around virtual reality that connects individuals to a completely different world. So watch this video.
차은우다, 차은우. 따뜻해.
어서 와. 소개할게. 내 여자친구야.
안녕하세요.
네가 와줘서 기뻐.
나도 불러줘서 기뻐. 깜짝이야. 어머, 어떡해.
돌고래다.
어디? 대박.
밑에서 봐도 예쁘네.
어우야.
그만 좀 봐라, 이모. 오지간히 해야지.
엄마한테 말하지 마. 5G로 더 리얼하게 썸 타는 이 스윗한 일상. 레얼
U 플러스 VR.
얼굴 천재 차은우가 나만의 썸남으로 오직 U 플러스에서만 U 플러스 5G.
So you see in that video, she was sitting in her bedroom, and she
Exactly.
had the HD video, and she was having that experience, and that experience felt real, like she was there.
Yes.
In the middle one, you've got someone who's playing squash with a favorite famous squash player. There's another one where somebody wanted to dance with the best dancer in the world. So you could have a virtual reality with Beyonce, for example, and dance with Beyonce,
In your bedroom.
and as if you're actually doing stuff with her, right? So these are some of the early services that many people are looking at. Then there is another one where, and again, this has got a commercial application where fire services, at least in the UAE, and police services are beginning to look at what they call the 360-degree camera that they wear. If you look at the guy on this side, the guy, he's got something around his neck.
Sure.
That is a 360-degree camera. You can have fire departments. Every fireman will be wearing a 360-degree camera. And then from within the operational office, they can direct them on how to tackle the fire. Because it will be streaming a 360-degree view of what's happening in that particular disaster area.
Exactly.
So here's an example of how 360-degree cameras are used. This was shot over Dubai.
Oh, okay.
내가 어디에 있든 무엇을 하든 내가 있는 곳을 360도로 실감나게 보여주는 KT5G 리얼 360.
360도 넥밴드 카메라로 즐기는 리얼 360 KT 5G.
So there's a lady sitting in the office,
Sure.
and she's able to see what the people who are skydiving in Dubai are doing from the 360
But
degree.
I'm sure that one of these days, as we get used to and information are coming up, we'll maybe have to come back to you once again and continue with where we left off from. Thank you very much,
It'll be my pleasure.
and may
You're
God
welcome.
richly bless you in your endeavors. I don't know if you have some people in Ghana you want to say hello to just before we let you go.
I say hello to everyone. I hope you all. I hope you're all keeping safe, and just chin up and just continue to do what Ghanaians do best. Continue smiling, and being friendly. Thank you.
You're welcome, and thank you for having you too. And so, viewers, it's been educative, I must admit, with the interview we had with Mr. Ekow Nelson. And he has a proven track record in strategy, sales, and delivery of digital technologies and complex transformation solutions in over 40 countries. And I can understand the amount of workload he has on his neck, and so he's brought his expertise on board, and I'm sure he's been able to answer and deal with quite a number of the questions that I have on mind, and you have had on mind all this while. And I'm sure that a great deal of our fears with all these conspiracy theories bundled around have been allayed. And let's keep going on, and let's keep trusting God that come what may, we will still be safe. And so this has to do with the 5G and the COVID-19 and the issues surrounding them. What I can say to you at this point is that heed to all the precautionary measures the health professionals are giving to us. Wash your hands regularly, use your hand sanitizers, practice physical distancing and social distancing as much as you can. Stay at home to stay safe. Don't go, because we'll back to your homes once again with our next program, hosted by my friend and brother James McKeon, with his team of health experts to deal with some of the health issues, especially with regards to the COVID-19. We'll be right back, and we'll be with you presently. Thank you for watching.
Mayanoto, yes, way. Mayanoto.
Oh my Ghana, I mean, she ain't nada. And prim pad ye. Ye hear yame more. Now, once yame here or more. Into institutions, companies. Ubia yamia adum we shiraw na wo sika bia won fa yehwe mprempre no fa boa wate yemfa mi nko konfo anoche yemfa mi nko efie nkwanta yemfa mi nko all these hospitals, SD hospitals, Catholic hospitals, where biara na here for krofo hunamane. All of us have to come together to save our nation. So whatever you can give, there you are. You have all the numbers on the screen, the Momo account and the bank account number. You can send us any amount, and we'll be very grateful to you. And I'm sure the Creator will bless you and smile on you and say, thank you, my daughter. Thank you so much for being so good a daughter to me, for taking care of your brother when he was in trouble.
Sir, Odefa Momo Pay Swa. Mia star 170 hash. Afe na we mia 2 Momo Pay and Pay Bill. Wasan Mia 1 Momo Pay. Na fe we mia 547132 merchant number no. Na fe sikadodo a opese wo de boa no. Wabo eno so ede aka ho. Na afe we mia reference number COVID-19. Afe na wemia eye wo pin code no.
I wish you well.